what part of this brand is the company and which part is you? And those are tough conversations. And like, there's some tension when you start having conversations like that, because that makes them have to get honest with themselves. Like, is this bringing value to the new iteration of this company, or are you just holding on to it out of ego or out of habit because it's been so long? It's your baby. You've watched it grow, but at some point, not everything that you had at the beginning needs to stay.
Welcome to The Roll Call, the podcast where we dive into the roles that define us. I'm your host, John Glahn. On each episode, we explore the journeys of people discovering their true roles in life, business, and beyond. Get ready for inspiring conversations about finding purpose and authenticity. Let's roll the roll call. Welcome, everyone. I have Paige King, owner, founder, executive director, whatever we'd like to call it, for 20 Mile Marketing. And I am John Glahn, the host for the roll call. All are accounted for, so let's start the roll call.
Awesome.
For everyone's sake, I ran into Paige through some mutual friends, business friends, probably about 2 years ago, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And has always been an interesting cat to talk with, to get to know, always some layers of onions and all that fun stuff whenever we get together. So I was super excited to have her on today, because I want to talk about, she is like the poster child for roles right in an organization, and also multiple organizations. So Paige, why don't you let us know what 20 Mile Marketing is, what you do, and then maybe some of your other side hustles that you have.
Sure. So 20 Mile Marketing, we've been around for almost 3 years. And what we do is we fit really nicely with companies who are in between not having anyone dedicated to marketing, where the visionary is ending up owning the marketing seat, and they're not quite ready to hire full time because they're not sure what that role completely looks like. So what we're able to do is we go in and we're able to fill that gap by helping them redirect a strategy, and we also offer execution. But I really think that the work that we love to do is helping to detach a bit of the marketing message from the visionary, because there's a certain point in the company where the visionary, like, it's their baby, they've been taking care of it for a long time, but at some point the marketing needs to be for the company, right? And it can't just be the person and their ideas and what they want to do. So I also like to say we work very closely with the visionary to be able to let go a little bit and to start moving towards a more functional marketing machine.
So talk about roles. In that, you hit on a really key point where most visionaries and owners and founders, right? They're the ones that are creating the message. They're the ones that are sharing the message. They're the ones that are selling and all in everything. And even as they grow as a company, it is interesting that I don't know that many want to be the face over time, but they are forced into it, because most people think, hey, they're the ones that people buy from, so let's put them in front. So it's interesting as we, the intent of this podcast is to talk about roles and how you're helping them step away from the role that maybe is cast upon them, not even just at the marketing level, but as the face of the company.
And that's exactly it. So visionaries, like, they'll normally want to be involved in marketing and sales to some extent, and they'll have those parts inside of their box and their accountability chart. But at the same time, like, what they do is when it comes to certain parts of the business, some things are like, I just want to let that go. I don't want to do it. And they might say that for marketing, but in my experience, most of the time, they really don't want to let a lot of those parts go, because again, it's so tied to their identity. So it could be like just words that are being said. So like they want to write a lot of stuff or look over it, or they're very particular about like the images and the branding, and it's not all cohesive, and they've never really laid it out to say like, okay, this is our standard, because so much of the marketing is going to end up coming from them, right? Like, of course it will. It's a part of who they are, but they can't have to micromanage every single part and say, I hate this word because of whatever reason it doesn't connect with them. So it's like, okay, let's get that down on paper so that someone else can do that work and you don't have to do it.
I'm kind of tempted to go a route where you tell me a drastic story without names of someone that you've, like a worst case scenario that you've had to pry that from someone's hands.
So I don't want to use the word pry because I'd like to believe that we do it very, very, you know, in a tactful way. I mean, I definitely have like a direct, tough love approach, but it's all with love. So actually, I'll give you this example. So it's actually the story that made me love marketing in the first place. Because what I realized is, so the first job, I'll have to back up a little bit here in the story, but I got into marketing by accident. So a big part of my story is I spent a lot of time traveling. So I ended up in Argentina.
Can't wait to come back to that.
And so while I was in Argentina, I realized that I had met a guy when I was backpacking in New Zealand. We ended up in Argentina. And when I got there, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And so what I ended up doing was I was like, okay, I've made it to Argentina, but I don't speak Spanish. I don't have a degree. I've pretty much spent my time, I was in the military, and then I, backpacked around. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I ended up finding, at the time, there weren't a lot of remote options, so I was very limited. So I ended up going back to school. I was able to get a degree online. And as a part of my course, I needed to do a remote internship. And so or an internship in general, but of course I'm in Argentina. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to figure out something. So what happened was I looked everywhere. There was nothing remote. Like that was when they would look at you like you had like 10 heads to say that you wanted a remote internship. Yeah. And I finally found one, and it was with a company that was a summer camp. At the time they did sewing.
Okay.
It was a sewing summer camp. And it was located on the main line, which is the suburbs outside of Philadelphia. Okay. So I was like, that's kind of weird. I'm not a summer camp person. I'm not a sewing person, but I need this, right? Yeah. So they were doing an unpaid internship for the summer. I went in, I did the interviews, and what happened was me and the owner, we connected almost immediately, and she really saw a lot of potential in me. I was a little bit older at that point than some of the other interns, and so I got into marketing with, I did the summer with them, and at the end of the summer, she asked me, she's like, okay, why don't you just stay on for like 5 to 10 hours, and we'll start doing, a couple things. Because of how she is as an entrepreneur, she's someone who, like me, it's not that she necessarily, was a sewing person or a summer camp person. Like those are not part of her backgrounds. She understood business and she understood how to build. And so what she taught me in that was she was running on EOS. So she had me read traction, she got me into that mindset. And eventually like that 5 to 10 hours led into full time. And that's where I just became obsessed when it comes to marketing, because what I found more interesting than marketing was her ability to be able to build that business or think about that business over the course of 2 decades without ever, she's going to get on me if she hears me on this. She can't even sew, right? Like she can't even do it herself necessarily. I know she's going to listen to this, but but the thing is, what was interesting was like, she understood people, she understood her area, and in that, because she was able to build that, her identity was very much inside of this organization. And throughout the time that I've worked with them, and they're still a client of mine today, like they've literally evolved at every stage. I've gotten to see them grow. And I use this as the original question example, because what they did is they started out as a small sewing studio, and now they are actually rebranded, and they're Dean Adventure Camps. And what they do is they have multiple different locations. They offer way more than so. They do adventure sports, and they've just dreamed really big. And a lot of that started, like a lot of the work that I would do and that interested me was a lot of the psychology behind how people think about their business. How are they able to grow, or how are they able to let go? And marketing normally becomes like the place where they ideate or riff those ideas, and especially in a small business. And that's what I appreciated about it.
So did you have to pry her away? Wrong words. But was that identity wise?
I would say we had a lot of conversations on what we would talk a lot about is we'd have a lot of conversations on like, okay, what part of this brand is the company and which part is you? And those are tough conversations. And like, there's some tension when you start having conversations like that, because that makes them have to get honest with themselves. Like, is this bringing value to the new iteration of this company? Or are you just holding on to it out of ego or out of habit because it's been so long? It's your baby. You've watched it grow, but at some point, not everything that you had at the beginning needs to stay. And so again, sometimes it's the operations person that ends up having those conversations, but I feel like I've been fortunate enough in the companies that I've gotten to work with that I get to be a thought partner in those, because it's who's the person and who's the company. And especially like going through something as big as a rebrand process to change your entire identity from, sewing to want to move. That's a big move. And that's thinking about like who you are, what you stand for, your values, and just being able to walk through that process.
And it's interesting because people just think a rebrand, that does feel just like a marketing thing, but there's so much more beyond it when it is that type of situation, when it's the owner being removed from the identity. There's
a lot of emotions that start to happen with it. Like, because what happens with visionaries, especially, they'll be like high quick start, right? So they're like, you know what? No, throw it away. I want to do everything new. Like, okay. But then once the process starts, they're like, hold on. You're looking at photos or ideas or things that you spent so much time on. That doesn't really matter anymore. And I think that's a big part of it, especially with marketing, because you try so many different things, especially as a small business. And you might spend years and so much money, so much brain power, so much team power to things that really were just to get you to a step to know that it doesn't work. And you have to let go of that.
And that's the magic is finding it out fast enough, right? Are you measuring the right things to get there fast enough to know whether it's a good thing or not?
Exactly.
A year later, you look back and I just spent $50,000 on, I don't know.
And it, sometimes it's something too. It's like, okay, it worked for a little bit, but just because something worked for 6 months or a year, 8 years ago, doesn't mean that it's a continued strategy. So it's, again, you have to get honest with yourself, because people want the same things to work over and over again because there's so much of business that's just so hard. And it's like, sometimes you'll find something and you're like, this can just be easy for a second. And it very rarely just can just be easy for a second.
No, especially in today's changing world of, on the marketing side, how you communicate with someone, right? It's ever changing. That's incredible. I'd like to move to the other part, back to Argentina.
Let's go back to Argentina.
What other, again, we could go probably all day about the stories of how you got there. But in Argentina, you have another little special thing you're doing. What is that?
I do. So my husband and I, we own In Situ Viajes, or as we call it for English speakers, ISV Patagonia. It is a tour agency in Patagonia. So we primarily work with travelers from the US, Europe, and actually more recently Brazil. So international travel that wants to come to the Seven Lakes region outside of Patagonia. And what we do is, boat rides, hiking, kayak, gin tastings. We really want people to be able to experience. So we're in a town called Villa Langostura, and this town is a small mountain town. It has about 20,000 people in it. And it's outside of some of the larger places where people go in Patagonia. And what we try to do is really accentuate the local culture of where we are for people to really like dig a little bit deeper into Patagonia.
Wow. Did I see, I believe, did you host like a leadership team there or something?
Yes, I did. I've had multiple clients come down and visit me. So
I know I need to think about that as I do my annual planning sessions with my clients. That would be, that's not an easy to get there.
It's a lot easier than people think. Okay. So I think that there's something about Patagonia, and that's a lot. I mean, when I think about a lot of the work that we do, it's really marketing and education, because people think it's so hard. But I've had a client come visit me twice because they were like, oh, I thought it was like this big thing where it's like a bucket list and you can only go once because it's so hard. But when they came down, they were like, you can just do this. You feel remote, but you can get there pretty easily.
That's awesome. So, Wow. I know I have all kinds of ideas that aren't for a podcast. It's more personal. How do we get this to work? Which sounds awesome. The other part that I think is fascinating is obviously you're from the States, right? From Mississippi. And, you've made this you're not just living in Argentina, because I know you travel the world, right? So it's not like you're just popping over and you're moving you're in Argentina and you have a business based there on top of your marketing that is, again, it's global. How is that, managing that family and, all the things as we were talking, I think we were talking last night about how often you come back, right?
Yeah. So first of all, I feel very, very fortunate. Like there's a lot of times where I look around in my life and I'm like, whoa, like I really made this. Like it really is. I feel like I'm living, especially like when I look back to when I was younger, like this isn't the type of lifestyle that I was like working towards or planning towards. Like I never really knew what I wanted to do. So sometimes I'll just like stand there in awe and be like, I get to live in this beautiful place with all of these beautiful things. I have a wonderful husband who's like very supportive. And I get to live two worlds. Like I get to live in Argentina. I have my friends there and the things that I do there. But I also get to have my family and I get to come up and have relationships with clients. Like right now I am up here for the next couple weeks and I'm going, from Phoenix to Florida to DC to Philly, all to like speak with clients. And it's just amazing to me. And that's exactly honestly, it's like I designed the kind of life that I wanted. Like I like to be able to travel and be spontaneous, and I always wanted to do that. And I love Argentina. I don't want to leave Argentina. I'm very happy being there forever. But I get to do both, and like how lucky am I?
Yeah, no, I think lucky would be a word people would use, but I think but that's the amazing part is you chose that. And so many people are they look back on life, or again, they've created a life with family or doing whatever they're doing, and they realize, oh, I can't do what what I dreamt. I thought, they didn't realize what their dream was. They didn't think it was possible. And then they look back at their life and they're like, well, I'm locked into what I'm doing now. So the fact that you get to, you created the life you want. And that is, I love, there was a statistic for me to pull out of my ass on this, but it's got to be like a fraction of the percentage of the population that gets to doing something they love, where they love, how they want to do it. And that's incredible.
Yeah, no, I do try to take the time, like even on the days that are hard, or of course entrepreneurship is hard and there's definitely some hits, but like I get to do it on my terms in a way that is exciting and allows me to be flexible. Before I knew about entrepreneurship, that was always really important to me for as long as I can remember. My parents always tell me this too, which is that like I've always said like I want to be able to do what I want when I want, and I've maintained that to do things on my own rhythm. That has never stopped being the case, and I really like my life is designed to be able to do that.
That's incredible. You saying you get to do what you want. My wife would say the same thing, that I get to do what I want, but I don't. So on to, what do you actually do for the company in Argentina? What role do you play there?
So we have a team there. A lot of the work that I do, so like I said, this is a partnership with my husband, and we could do a whole podcast on what it's like running a business with your spouse versus having one on your own. So you should make note of that. Yeah. So it's a little bit different. So he's really smart, and like when it comes to all of those different types of assessments, we are polar opposites, right?
Yeah.
So what he's really good at is he is able to like really manage the team and operations. He's very good with people, and the work that I have been doing, and that I focus on in my visionary role on the company is things around like how can we attract like the marketing, the sales, how do we differentiate ourselves? There's lots of places that you can go for tours in Patagonia. But what I think we do is, one, I think that we have, I want to make sure that we're maintaining a presence in that area because it's a very unique area. I don't know if you know, Patagonia is huge, right? It crosses across Chile and Argentina. And so, I mean, you could spend 1,000 years there and not see everything. Like there's
Sure.
so much to see. So we really want to focus on the area that we're in. And so we have a team who's able to coordinate, and we work with travel agents and we work with direct to consumers. So they'll just contact us directly through the website. I did a lot of SEO work so that we're popping up like for things in English, things like that. And then we also have the people that we work with, whether it's boat captains, guides for kayaks. So we're coordinating them. We say suppliers. So we're working with the suppliers to make sure. And then we're also trying to combine what they're doing with our experience. So we'll add things. So we'll be looking at getting like, okay, they want to do like a really special lunch. So an activity that we offer would be, or like ideating, like how can we make this better? Like, okay, someone's coming here for a unique experience. So like, say it's a couple going for a honeymoon. It would say like, okay, they need a guide. We're going to have them go out on a private boat, and then we're going to drop them with kayaks, and they're going to paddle to a private island where they're going to then have lunch. There's a lot of steps to that. So we're like orchestrating and making sure that all of those steps are perfect. And then I'll usually say, like, okay, what would be extra special is if we send a photographer out there as a surprise, so they'll have like photos of this forever. Or how can we make each of these experiences something where they're like, whoa, like I really went to Patagonia. So a lot of our time is ideating on how to make those experiences better.
Wow. So I think too, what is interesting, you have to immerse yourself in the local economy experience. So that's almost like where I blend roles of like community, where many of, some of us do, whether it be some nonprofit work or working with our schools or whatever it might be. That's connecting to the community in one way. You're connecting and blending really your personal experience, your business experience, and connecting to the community. Whereas I'm imagining whether it's your tour guides or whatever, they're a small business that just love doing what they're doing and probably don't know how to market, probably don't know how to get clients, et cetera. So you're creating a whole nother avenue for the local economy. Right?
And that's exactly it. So and every trip we try to see, like, we don't want to so it's not just the guide. Like if they even have like a piece of chocolate, like make sure it's from a piece of chocolate from a factory that was in the local area. So it's like the details. But I'll say this too. It was very important to me when we bought. So this is a company that we actually bought in the pandemic. And so it already had like a little bit of structure to it. So when we redesigned it, rebranded it, and we wanted to do what we wanted to do with it. My first marketing initiative wasn't to go out and say, okay, well, how can we get clients? Like, it was the pandemic. My focus was, so what I did is I got a videographer, and I found 15 different businesses that would have to do with the products that we were going to push or sell, because I felt like there was such a mystery when it came to Patagonia, what it is, like, are there people there? Like, people just like don't have a good idea. So I created a series where I like really got the local community involved and did interviews, translated them all into English, and then created pages of them so that we use them as reference points. So like, first of all, they loved it because they got videos and photos. It's pandemic, because I wanted it to be something that supported the local business, especially during that time. Because in Argentina during the pandemic, like the entire country closed down. You could not go in or out for like a year. So there was a lot of suffering when it came to tourism. Right. And so my first marketing initiative was to, how can I get them to know who we are, and how can we uplift them first before we even like try to get any customers in here. And so like I have that series, and I love that series, and got to talk to them about like how they got through the pandemic, what did they think about their local products, how did they learn it, and just trying to look at the details of like each of those people and what they offer. Wow.
And I'm sure you brought some thriving business to everyone. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
now you were saying we need to do a whole nother podcast on this, but we got to come back to having spouses, couples run business.
Yeah.
I don't want you to go into all the gory details for your own benefit, but I have struggled. My in-laws, I was always amazed that they worked in the same office. So they would go to work together, ride in the same car, go back, and then come home. And I like how can you have to have there is a break in life of work, family, and I've always just been amazed at those that can do that. And I did try to bring my wife in my first business, and she was like, didn't use kind words, but it was, so, where, I know you said that he has strengths that you don't have.
Totally.
Which I think is fantastic. If, do you have a good little story for us?
So
that might, again, sorry.
I would say just in general, like the way that I'll probably share more like how we've learned to work together. Like, like when we first started working together, like the thing is we have to also look at like we're from two different cultures, right? Like we both met in New Zealand. He's from Argentina, right? So even he's never lived in the States. So he's not going to think about things how I'm thinking about. So even take the marriage element outside of it. Like we're approaching issues or problems from completely different perspectives, and obviously that applies to a lot of different things, but it especially can manifest in things like work or what is a business, because the business is also kind of like one foot in each door. It's half in Argentina where we have to do the suppliers and the people and the team, but it's also half
the rest of the globe.
Yeah, global. So like it's a little bit of push and pull, because like there's things that like this there's frustrations of having businesses in Argentina, and there's frustrations of having global businesses. And so for us, what we had to come to terms with was what were each of our swim lanes, right? So there's things where he'll make decisions now where, maybe I don't agree, but like I know that's his swim lane and it's not mine. Like I can offer an opinion, but I know that that's not one that I'm going to go all out on, right? Like that's not where I need to be. Like I can offer an opinion, but it's not like that's his swim lane or it's my swim lane. And like when it comes to marketing and sales, like he will ask me more. Like he really like tries to push, like he has obviously a lot of interest in it, like anyone who owns a company.
Right.
But he knows like that's my swim lane and like the decisions that I make in there. So it's like being really respectful of those strengths, because like I said, like I'm a high quick start with a lower follow through. He's very high follow through, lower quick start. He's not as risk oriented. He's extremely systematized and organized, and all of that is great. And it's learning to appreciate those things. And the more that I have a business, the more I appreciate having someone around me who is like that, even if I don't understand it, and it can be frustrating. So I think it's the development of he's good at things that I'm not, and I'm good at things that he's not, and that's okay. It's not a competition, because at the end of the day, like we both want this to work, we both want to win, and we're both working towards the same goal.
So what do you know? It's roles and responsibilities in a business.
Exactly.
And actually living in those. So you brought up swim lanes, and you brought up, we talked about how you're opposites, and he's a quick start, or you're a high quick start and he isn't. Where I know you love assessments. Where did that come in? Is there a mutual love for those? What have you guys used to really find what those swim lanes are?
So I am definitely the one pushing the assessments. And that is without a doubt. He definitely doesn't go and look for them, but I think that he'll always take them if I'm interested in them. And I think, again, it's just like with any business, like it gives you a common language that you're able to say, like, oh, that's your high quick start coming in, or that's your, that's your invention. Like, that's why this is happening, or this is you being tenacious. And so I think he does appreciate that. He's not so as enthusiastic as I am around assessments, but he does like tolerate them and see, again, like, being able to have that common language is helpful.
And you're seeing it play out, right?
Exactly. Like you see the results, you see that it works. Because it really does, like, to be self-aware. I mean, that's good in a relationship, that's good in a business. Yeah. That's just a good thing to have. And that's what those assessments allow you to do. Yeah.
Are you, because what I find, and this is, my own experience, is obviously we do assessments for work, right? For our employees, and we're very, very clear on using the verbiage and, the swim lanes, roles and responsibilities. And then at home, there's only two people, or, you have children sometimes, but there's two people, and those same things have to happen within a household, that the roles and responsibilities, and yet many of us don't take those and translate those into home, right? So I'm curious, do you find on the home side of life, You have the same swim lanes? Or
So
are we just doing it in business?
no, so we see that I would say we're a little unique in that like our lives are very integrated with work. We're not very like, okay, there's like work life. Like we both love to work. We're both very passionate about the work that we do in any capacity. So all of that crosses over. We don't have kids, so we are very much like work, all of those lessons, and it very much impacts like relationship and work. Like to us, we don't separate them as much. So it's, you know, it's all together.
No, there's a beautifulness in that too, right? As long as there's the self-awareness of when it's going off the rails.
Exactly.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I like to close with a failure, a significant or whatever you'd like to choose, a failure that you've had in life, and what did you learn from it?
Any failure, just wide open.
Doesn't have to be business. It can be whatever comes to your heart.
I don't, it's funny, and I know this is like a cop-out, but I won't make it all the way a cop-out. Like, I don't know if I would ever just pinpoint something that said, like, this is an absolute failure. I just think that, like I said, like, I've lived a lot of different lives, and I've gotten to do a lot of different things, and there's areas, like, where I wouldn't go back to, or I wouldn't say, like, oh, that was the best time, but, like, it's honestly amazing to me that I've gotten to live this like really full, interesting life in all parts of the world and doing a lot of different things with a lot of different people. And none of it, I would say like, oh, this was a failure. I was really knocked down. Like I've definitely been knocked down, but I've always had like a forward motion of like knowing the kind of life that I want to have and live. And I keep pushing forward to that. Yeah. I mean, there's things like I've pivoted big time, like in the business or like going back and forth, and like none of that to me is failure. I don't know if there's anything I would just say I failed. That's not in my vocabulary of how I operate.
Where do you think that comes from? You think that's just, did you learn that from family? Has it always been a part of you? Where do you think that?
I mean, I was raised by a Marine, so I think that there is a lot of that inside of that, and that's a lot of my dad's mentality and the way that he talks. So I do think I took a part of that, but I think what I always think about is no matter what's been going on in life, like what I do think that I've tried to stay above mentally as far as mindset is to never have a victim's mentality. Like nothing's ever happening to me. If there's something in my life that's not exactly how I want it, it's because I didn't put in the work and I didn't do it, like period. And so, and there's plenty of things where I'm like, I wish I had more of this or more of this or more of this, but that's nobody else's responsibility. Like that just means I haven't worked yet or put in the effort to do it. Wow.
What would the world be like if everyone had that mentality, that it wasn't everyone else's fault, everyone else's issue? Most of us are scarred from our childhood from some of that, and it manifests itself out in our everyday life. And so I think that's why it's a blessing to know you. I never knew why. I did know why, but I've had a ball. I really appreciate you coming on today. How can we help people connect with you? How do they get in touch with you?
Sure. So 20milemarketing.com is probably the easiest way. And if you're looking for a trip to Patagonia, it's isvpatagonia.com, and we'd love to help you bring you down for like a bucket list. You have to come, John, and that's a pitch for you directly. Yeah,
I'll share this with my wife.
And Julie.
So, Awesome. Well, that's a wrap today. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for tuning in to The Roll Call with John Glahn. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Remember, discovering your true role in life is a journey worth exploring each and every day. Until next time, keep defining your path and living your authentic self. This is John Glahn signing off.